All right, tomorrow we will definitely be covering everything that went down with the Music City Open, but today we're doing a very different video that I did not expect to be talking about. Let's talk about the Natalie Ryan situation. All right, so if you are unaware, which it really wasn't that publicly known if you're watching just the broadcast, there was a threat against a particular player during the second round of FPO. And even though there wasn't too much specifically said, there was a press release that I will read over. The DGPT temporarily suspended competition and spectating at Music City Open due to the threat of potential violence against a competitor. Metro Police were immediately contacted and responded to the scene to assess the situation. The player in question was also notified, as were their cardmates. After assessing the situation with Metro Police and local tournament staff, additional security measures deployed on site and play resumed at 11 a.m. And then Jeff Spring goes on to state that threats of violence at DGPT events are utterly unacceptable and are treated with the utmost seriousness by our entire staff. And I definitely want to reiterate that I think the Pro Tour did basically everything right. They got police involvement when it needed to be, and they still continued play after they decided it was safe. I think this was definitely a great decision by the Pro Tour, and they made every right decision along the way. So I will not really be doing a whole lot of editing to this video. I just want to state general thoughts about the situation because it feels very disheartening to see where the sport of disc golf has become, at least to some degree. And this isn't confirmed by any means, but according to a spectator, someone threatened a mass shooting. And this is also coming from a year ago where there was a school shooting in Nashville specifically. So overall, I just feel so much sadness and annoyance and just kind of disbelief with the situation. The fact that so many people online are willing to have so much hate spewed towards this particular player just feels like it's totally missing the point. There are rules in place that have allowed Natalie to play in these events. You can obviously dislike the decision. You can obviously have many disagreements with Natalie playing, but the fact that it has now escalated from a trans issue to basically a human rights issue is very disheartening. I feel like basic human rights should just be respected. Obviously, there are so many reasons why you may not think Natalie Ryan should be playing an FPO division. I get it. I can see why that is a stance from so many different people out there. That is definitely not lost on me, but the fact that there's so much hatred towards a particular player that is playing within the rules stated by the PDGA. It is very weird to hate this one particular player when Natalie Ryan is playing by the rules. There are also other FPO players that are transgender currently playing in the FPO division. This is not just a Natalie Ryan issue. It is facing a lot of other people, but because Natalie Ryan is in the public eye so much more than all those other players, the majority of the hatred is given towards Natalie Ryan. And obviously the lawsuits last year were all from Natalie Ryan. So obviously there's additional reasons there to not like Natalie, and her social media is just so incendiary that it really makes it hard to like and root for Natalie. I get it, but that does not mean that Natalie does not deserve a basic set of human rights. I feel like so much of online communication has basically portrayed Natalie as like subhuman, just the absolute worst of disc golf. And it honestly just makes me feel so freaking upset with where disc golf is at. Just last weekend, I heard a lot of people from Jonesboro speak neutrally about Natalie. I haven't heard that in a while, so it was good to have some perception where it isn't just straight negative, where they portray Natalie as like a monster. It was good to have at least some neutral communication. But when it comes to online, people do not hold anything back, and they're willing to be the most ruthless, which it seems to be the case in the situation, where even if it wasn't a credible threat, I'm not really going to entertain the notion that it wasn't, because you just don't know when it comes to stuff like this. But somebody had the intention to be this aggressively violent towards Natalie, which just feels like a huge step back for disc golf. And it just makes me so very upset. There are so many good things going on with disc golf. There are so many positive reasons to love the sport. So why focus so much on hatred? And even if Natalie Ryan was in contention, as of right now, the rules currently allow Natalie and all transgender athletes to play in the FPO division. So until next year or whenever some reform happens, this is just the way that it's going to be, even if people hate it. I get that it's very hated. I get that so many people dislike the decision, but this is just where we are at with the division. And the need to gaslight this whole situation saying it was Natalie that made the call, it's just dumb. It is just absolutely idiotic, and it makes me so very upset. Because let's say, for instance, this is like a family member that you may disagree with on certain things. You do not wish for them to have a freaking death threat against them. This is just so far removed from the sport that I love, and it makes me feel like, where have we gone wrong with the sport? I know reform has to happen, and it will happen over time, but as of right now, just vehemently hating one player and wishing to cause harm on them is just so dumb, and it makes me so frustrated that we can't treat people with basic human rights. It feels like a public embarrassment of the sport, and I get that this is the vocal minority, and not everyone wants to treat Natalie as a monster, I get it, but as somebody that has posted about Natalie Ryan in the past, every single couple of days, I get a new comment about why Natalie Ryan is the worst person in the absolute world, why they hate them more than anyone else, and it makes me feel like, why can't we have some productive discourse about the topic? Obviously, there's so many reasons to support only non-transgender athletes to play in the FPO division. Obviously, you don't have to state it in so many different ways. You don't have to come up with new insults about why Natalie Ryan is subhuman, but it continues to happen day after day after day. And I feel like people can latch onto this specific issue and create so much hatred where it doesn't need to be. You can have a strong disagreement with the Pro Tour and why they decided to allow transgender athletes in the FPO division. Obviously, you can have that take, and that's totally within your right. You have every right to say, this is dumb, this is idiotic. I get it. But to target one player specifically and threaten harm against them, that is just so far removed from any humanity I've seen in the sport, and it makes me feel like, what do we have to do to allow some degree of acceptance with this issue? But with that, I think I'll just end it with just treat people with the same degree of respect as you would want to be treated. It is a basic rule that I think the overall discourse could greatly improve from. So with that, Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.